What's going on, you guys? Back again with another Oscars video, and today I'm going to be talking about the big one, Best Picture. Which movie is going to be named the best film of 2021? Today, I try to answer that question while also breaking down each and every one of the nominees to see, what their chances are, what the movie was about, what I thought of them, all that stuff. So I don't want to waste any more time because this is going to be a really long video. We have 10 nominees this year, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, before I get into the weeds of everything, I'm at almost near the end of recording. I'm about to start talking about West Side Story, and I just realized that I have not been screen recording the entire time, and so apologies if my notes on this look a little clunky. I think what I might end up doing is just having my notes there from the very beginnings. I'm going to start screen recording now, but apologies in advance. I feel like an idiot. All right, first up we have Belfast. Now, I've talked about this movie a couple of times already in my top 10 films of 2021 video, as well as the 2 videos I did about the supporting actor categories, but let me run down the plot one more time. Belfast is essentially a coming-of-age film about a young boy growing up in Belfast, Ireland, obviously, during the Troubles. So you get a lot of the things that you've come to expect in coming-of-age films, except something that I like about Belfast is it takes this premise, something that we've seen a few times, but Kenneth Branagh just proves why he's an excellent director in the way that it's helmed. Without saying a word sometimes, he can just shoot a scene a certain way, and it tells you the power dynamics within this family and also what others are thinking. And what he was able to craft in the script is a very fun, lighthearted movie at times that has some serious family drama and obviously takes place during a very serious time. Something that I really like about, I guess, the behind-the-scenes info about this film is that Kenneth Branagh, the director and writer, actually grew up during this period of time in Belfast, and he was around Buddy's age. So you can tell with the end product that this was something that mattered a lot to him. This film is riddled with excellent performances from Jamie Dornan, Katrina Balfe, Oscar-nominated performances from Ciarán Hinds and Judi Dench, and then, of course, the young star Jude Hill. If you haven't seen Belfast and you're interested in coming-of-age films, this is about as good as they come. This film will have you both cheering for Buddy as he tries to get more time with a girl in his class, and also fearing for their family as they try to make very serious decisions about their future. And also as you're thrusted into certain situations that they're in where you don't really know if they're going to make it out okay. And obviously, I love this movie. My personal opinion, I had it at number 10 in my top 10 films of 2021 list. Now, I think if I were to remake that list today, it would be a little bit different, but I would have a hard time bumping Belfast out. I've seen it twice now, and I really enjoyed it the first time. Loved it even more the second time. To me, this is a movie that's insanely rewatchable that really most anyone can enjoy. So I really enjoy it, and apparently the Academy does too because it's up for a bunch of other nominations, including Best Director, Supporting Actor and Supporting Actress, and Screenplay, along with a couple of others. So I want to write down a couple of key points here for Belfast, so I will go ahead and have my first bullet point be excellently written and directed, of course, by Kenneth Branagh. And then I'm going to put, it's a coming-of-age film with very serious tones. And yeah, that's really all I have to say about Belfast. I really enjoy this movie. If you haven't seen it, I believe it's only in theaters, unfortunately. I don't think you can rent it online yet. But if you have the opportunity and wherever you're at, I definitely recommend paying the ticket price to go see Belfast. Alright, up next we have Koda, which is the tale of a child of deaf adults, otherwise known as a Koda, surprise, surprise, who has basically been her family's translator her entire life, who now wants to leave their community that she's lived in forever to go pursue a career in singing, of all things. And the first thing that I have to say about Koda is, in my opinion, it is a masterclass in towing the line between family drama and pure comedy. There were some scenes in this movie that made me cry from the amount of times that I was laughing because it was just so funny, but then also some scenes near the end where the tears were flowing and they were very real. This movie really does its best to pack a punch and it works, but it'll also have you laughing like throughout the film. It's really impressive what Sian Heder was able to accomplish here with her direction. And without spoiling anything, because this is a movie, I know I said I think anyone could enjoy Belfast, but literally if there is one movie that you should watch here that is good for everyone, aside from a few jokes, it's Koda. I haven't met a person that hasn't enjoyed it yet. I highly recommend you watch it. There's a scene near the end where our main character is singing a certain song, and that has been on my Spotify on repeat for like the last 3 months. I cannot get enough of it. And this is another one of those movies where the more I come back to it, the more I love it. I know I just said in talking about Belfast that if I were to redo my top 10 movies of 2021 list today, I know that Koda would be higher. In fact, I think it might even be in the top 3 if I were to do it today. I absolutely adore this movie. If you haven't seen it, you have got to watch it. Get Apple TV Plus and watch it today. And then it's also up for supporting actor, which at this point, it looks like Troy Kotsur is going to win. In my supporting actor video, I had Cody Smith-McPhee winning, but this was before Troy Kotsur started winning awards. I'm honestly super pumped that he is starting to gain some traction there, and he might even walk home with an Oscar. At this point, I think he is the front runner. So I'm glad that I was wrong about that in that video. But Troy Kotsur is obviously nominated there for Best Supporting Actor, and then Sian Heder is nominated for Best Screenplay, which very well deserved. So if I am to write down a couple of key things about Koda, I'll go ahead and put heartfelt family comedy. Will make you cry, and then anyone can enjoy this. And seriously, I really think anyone can enjoy this. The only thing that I think would be iffy is if you have small children. Maybe go on one of those websites where you see what's in a movie before you show your kids, because there are a few jokes here that are very adult. They're hilarious, but they are very adult, and there's language here as well. So maybe check that out if you're nervous about showing your kid. But otherwise, I think that this is a great movie for anyone. Up next, we have Don't Look Up, the story of 2 scientists who discover a massive asteroid that is headed straight for Earth that is going to cause the next mass extinction. So after the government turns their back on them, they have to go on this massive media tour to convince everyone that this is real and we are all going to die. I don't know why I started laughing at that last line. It's not funny if everyone is about to die. And I remember whenever I went and saw this back in December, I was lucky enough to have a theater screening here in my town, because it is on Netflix right now in case you haven't watched it and you're interested. But I remember whenever I went to go see it, I walked out and I overall really enjoyed the movie. It made my honorable mentions for 2021. But one thing that I will say is, for me, it's a little all over the place with its tone. And normally the director, Adam McKay, is excellent at striking a balance between tones. He previously directed The Big Short as well as Vice, which are both very heavy topics to cover in a film. But he managed to blend in the right amount of humor while also bringing his point across in those films. And Don't Look Up, for me, it just didn't mesh as well as those films. Not to say it was bad by any means. I enjoyed the movie, but I felt like it could have been a little bit smoother in my opinion. And one thing that I have to credit Adam McKay with, because he also wrote the movie, is he packed in a lot into this movie. I don't even remember how long it is, like 2.5 hours, something like that. He has something to say about government, corporations, trusting mega billionaires, trusting science over whatever people say. There was a lot he wanted to accomplish here, and frankly, for the movie to have come out even good while also covering so much, I think is a testament of itself. So overall, Don't Look Up in hindsight is a little all over the place for me, but I still enjoy it, and I have to give credit to Adam McKay for packing in so much within a movie. And then the other awards that it's up for are screenplay, score, and editing. Okay, so now a few quick stats about Don't Look Up here. Packs a lot, I'm going to emphasize that, a lot into 2 hours, and then a little all over the place, but still good. To me, The Big Short is like one of the best financial movies of all time because of how different it is. So whenever I go see an Adam McKay movie, I'm going to have super high expectations. So it didn't quite meet that, but it's still a great movie. Up next, we have Drive My Car, a Japanese film that revolves around a man who is trying to pick up the pieces after his wife has passed. And whenever the man takes on a play in a new town to direct, he is forced to use a chauffeur who he develops a very unique relationship with. The first thing that I'll say here is if you're going to watch this movie, it is 3 hours and you have to pay attention. You cannot just be on your phone, look up for a scene, go back to your phone. If you're going to watch this, you need to really watch it. I mean, even for me, I had to rewind and go back to a few scenes because I just got lost sometimes. And really a lot of this movie is talking and you trying to understand where the lead character's head is at. In processing the grief of his wife and also how he interacts with certain other people in the film without spoiling too much. Again, this is one of those movies that's kind of hard to talk about if you haven't seen it. But I will say, I think the most compelling scene in this movie is whenever our main character is talking with one of the actors that he hired in his car. And this actor... I won't explain why it's surprising that they're having this interaction, but... let's just say they have a past. I'll leave it at that. You'll just have to watch the movie. And I will sit here and I will be the dumb dude who did not go to film school. And I have to say, before I say this, I respect the filmmaker. I can acknowledge that this is a very well-made movie, but it just didn't hit for me. I don't know what it is. I like foreign films. For whatever reason, I don't know if I just watched this on the wrong day or if I wasn't in the right mood for a 3-hour drama. Surprisingly, sometimes I'm not in the mood for that and I want to watch a Marvel movie. But I just couldn't get into the movie. I can fully acknowledge that there's a lot of greatness happening on the screen. I think it's excellently directed and the lead actor honestly does a incredible job, and there were some really great scenes like the one in the car that I just described. Well, there are a lot of scenes in cars, but that specific scene in the car. But overall, I just don't think I'm ever going to rewatch this. I'm sorry if that bugs anybody, and you can get mad at me all you want, but that's just my honest opinion. Something that I have to give it credit for is it really is a journey of how this person picks up the pieces of their life after such a traumatizing event such as a loved one passing away. And the concept of that being a journey is only elevated by the fact that this movie is 3 hours. It does not rush any of these emotions. You see him kind of work through everything. So overall, this movie is not for the faint of heart and not for the casual movie watcher. If you absolutely love film, I'm going to recommend this because at the end of the day, can I acknowledge that this is excellently helmed and is a good movie? Yes. Am I ever going to rewatch it? Probably not. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion. Again, dumb dude who didn't go to film school. I like movies. That's just my opinion. Sorry. And then it's also nominated for Best Director, Best Screenplay, and then Best Foreign Language Film, which I would imagine it's a shoo-in for Best Foreign Language Film. I mean, it's nominated for Best Picture, so it's kind of nice knowing that director is going to walk home with something. All right, so Drive My Car, a couple of key points here. A true journey through grief, and then compelling dialogue. Basically, that's the entire movie. And then I'm going to put here 3 hours. All right? It's 3 hours. So you know what you're signing up for if you decide to watch it. It's on HBO Max. I would recommend at least giving it a shot because it is a very well-made movie. And maybe it'll work for you. It just didn't for me. But I can still acknowledge that it is a well-made movie for sure. All right, now we have the big one, Dune. This was my favorite movie last year, and if I were to redo the list, it would still be at number 1. It's kind of hard to describe, but let me try to explain the synopsis of this movie. Basically, it is a whole lot of sci-fi stuff on different planets, and it's a lot of people playing intergalactic politics. People betray people. We have a person who's supposed to be the messiah of this galaxy, I guess. It's basically all I want to tell you about the plot because anyone who likes film should watch this. If you're watching this right now and you haven't seen Dune, it's on HBO Max. Seriously, like, I don't even care. Shut off this video. Don't listen to me talk for the rest of this time. Whatever, screw it. Literally turn this off and go watch Dune. The only way that I know how to describe this, and maybe I'm just being a fanboy, is that this thing is incredible. Like, the director, Denis Villeneuve, is an actual genius for what he accomplished here, and he was straight up snubbed for Best Director. I'm gonna sound like angry dude on the internet who didn't go to film school, but like, I don't know how you can watch Dune and not acknowledge that Denis Villeneuve was a top 5 director in the last year. It's preposterous that he didn't get nominated. Visual effects in this movie are some of the best that I have ever seen. Watching this in IMAX was an experience that I am never gonna forget. Like, I would look at some of the things on the screen and be like, that's real. Like, I don't know how CGI has progressed so incredibly well for this giant sandworm to look like it's staring me in the face. And something that I really like about Dune, seriously, is it is a slow movie with a lot of political moving pieces, but it's not afraid to deliver you incredible action scenes without it being lumped into action or drama. It's both. It's just Dune. That's the only way I know how to describe it. So, I mean, if you haven't been able to figure it out at this point, I love this movie. I think it's the truth, but you should definitely read the opening crawl, because whenever I took my roommate to go see it, we completely missed that, and poor guy was lost like the entire film, and he doesn't typically watch sci-fi movies, so it took a lot to pick up on stuff, and I basically had to tell him what it is he just watched 2 hours later. So definitely make sure you read that. And then other things that it's nominated for basically every technical award, and Denis Villeneuve is not nominated for director. I think it's going to pick up, like, visual effects is a lock. If you're going to bet on anything whenever it comes to the Oscars, Dune is winning visual effects. Like, if it didn't win that would be the snub of the evening. There's no way it isn't winning that. So anyway, a couple of quick pointers here. The first and foremost, I'm just going to put the streaming service that it's on. If you haven't watched it, it's worth a month-long subscription. Seriously, watch Dune if you like sci-fi especially. It's a great film. And then after that, I'm going to put, sci-fi film with a lot of politics, incredible set pieces, and then best VFX of the year. That's Dune. I absolutely love the movie. You should definitely watch it. I'm glad that it was acknowledged for Best Picture. After Dune, we have King Richard, which is the true story of how tennis stars Venus and Serena Williams came to be with the help of their father, Richard. And what I liked most is that this film offered a fresh perspective on a sports film. You see specifically what this family as a group, not just Venus and Serena, had to overcome in order to get to where they are today. And while Richard isn't a perfect person, you have to acknowledge that it got results, what he did for his daughters. And at the end of the day, it was all love, and he wanted to make sure that they were set for life in whatever it is that they did. I mean, he and his wife had 3 other daughters in the house, and all of them were highly successful academically. So to me, this movie, if anything, is not only a great sports film, but a great family film. A really great scene in this film is whenever Child Protective Services comes to the Williams house because a neighbor gave a tip-off that Richard was making 2 of his daughters play tennis in the rain at night or something. They were doing practice and they got CPS called on them. And basically, Richard Williams is there, and you have the official in the house, you have 2 police officers, and she says like, I'm just here to check on the kids, make sure everything's okay. And he just, he stands his ground and he says, okay, you want to check on the kids? We're going to check on the kids. She's a valedictorian. She's going to be a doctor. She's doing great in school, and we have 2 tennis stars here. So if you ask me, we're not doing too bad. It makes it more meaningful whenever our main character isn't a perfect person, because I definitely watched this movie, and there were some things that Richard did where I was like, I'm not a parent, but I don't know if I would have done that. But, I mean, it just goes to show that these things are super complicated, and there's not one way to get results. What matters at the end of the day is that you got results, and his daughters ended up in a better place because of it. It also has one of the best performances from Will Smith in his entire career, a fantastic supporting role in Anjanae Ellis, both of whom are nominated for Oscars. I think Will Smith is basically a lock to win one. I don't think Ellis is going to win, but if she did, I wouldn't be upset. In addition to those two being nominated, it's also nominated for screenplay, editing, and an original song. Alright, so King Richard, I'm going to put sports film. And, I didn't mention this, but it's on HBO Max if you want to stream it today. HBO Max has a lot of these, so you could honestly just get it for the free trial or whatever it is, and you can knock out all of these, and you could be very well informed on Best Picture. But anyway, back to King Richard. Excellent performance from Will Smith and Anjanae Ellis. And I'm going to put different spin on a feel-good family film. Because there are some very serious things that happen in this film. If you have small kids, definitely look up at least one specific thing that happens here, maybe even a couple, because there are some very serious things that happen here. They do not sugarcoat that where the Williams family came from was not exactly a great area of town. And it just adds to the fact that they had to overcome so much that they came from the area that they did. Honestly, very inspiring. I cried whenever I watched King Richard. I love this film. You should definitely watch it. Up next, we have Licorice Pizza, which is also, I guess, a coming-of-age film, but a very, very different coming-of-age film than Belfast. Basically, this film chronicles the budding relationship between a 17-year-old high school senior and a young woman who shows up to take the kids' photographs one day, I guess. I forget. I think her profession is just she works for the photograph company. And huge part of this movie's tone is it takes place in the 70s. And I'm going to say up front that this movie was a bit of a mixed bag for me. But let me clarify on that. I think Paul Thomas Anderson is one of the best directors in Hollywood today. I don't think the guy knows how to make a bad movie, if I'm being perfectly honest. He has at least one film in the top 100 here that I'm going to do at a much later date. But this is definitely the kind of film where you have your two leads, right? And they bounce from crazy character to crazy character to crazy character. One of which is played by Bradley Cooper, who steals every scene he's in this movie. If he was in a little bit more of it, I would have had him at Best Supporting Actor, but ultimately him being left out makes sense to me. He wasn't in the movie a whole lot. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. But in a movie like that, where you have your two primary characters going from crazy person to crazy person, I feel that you have to be really invested in your two leads. And I just wasn't. I honestly just thought the story was kind of creepy, and I couldn't get past it, unfortunately. And you can totally disagree with me. I'm not saying that it's a bad film. I'm just saying it didn't work for me because of that. And I don't see myself rewatching it, but that's just my reasoning why I just honestly didn't enjoy it as much as I wish I would have. But I will say, even though I couldn't connect with the leads, it was purely because of the story. I think Alana Haim does a amazing job for her first movie too. I'm a big fan of the Haim band, so I was really looking forward to watching her in this movie, and I think that she did an amazing job. And then also Cooper Hoffman, this, in case you didn't know, the lead in this movie is the son of Philip Seymour Hoffman. I didn't even realize that going in, but after the movie, I was like, man, I didn't really enjoy that as much as I wanted to, but, he was great, and so was Alana Haim. But yeah, Cooper Hoffman, I think, has a really bright future in Hollywood moving forward here. I think that they're both really good. It's honestly just for me, the story that I couldn't move past. And then outside of Best Picture, it's also nominated for Best Director and Best Screenplay for Paul Thomas Anderson. So here, let me go ahead and put a few notes here. Very different coming of age film, wacky characters. Let me see. Paul Thomas Anderson, I feel like that guy, he's reached the point where you can just attach his name to something and people are going to go see it. I don't remember how much money this movie made at the box office, but I feel like it's very different from like Quentin Tarantino, where if his movies are attached, he's going to make like $500 million, like guaranteed basically at this point about anything he does a movie on. But Paul Thomas Anderson is going to attract people who love film, no matter what it is he's directing at that point. He's earned that much. And then star-turning performances from Hoffman and Haim. But anyway, that's Licorice Pizza. Overall, a mixed bag for me, if I'm being totally honest, but I can at least acknowledge it's excellently helmed and it has really great performances from the two leads. The story just didn't work for me. Then after Licorice Pizza, we have a movie that was the biggest surprise for me that got nominated, Nightmare Alley. Nightmare Alley is the story of a man who begins working at a carnival and picks up a couple of tips from the clairvoyant act there, who then starts going on his own journey. This is one of those movies where it's kind of hard to describe. It's basically this guy shows up to a carnival, he learns how to trick people, he wants to go make money with it. That's basically Nightmare Alley. And it's the classic rise and fall story. And I know that sounds like a spoiler, but you can honestly see it a mile away. And that's my biggest, issue with this movie, is that you can predict where it's going. Basically from the beginning, you get a real sense of who this guy is, and it can only ever end one way. But the twists and turns that it takes throughout the film definitely kept me hooked, and overall, I really enjoyed Nightmare Alley. This film was honestly one of those where I felt different walking out, you know? Like I said, you understand where the film is going to go, but it still hits, or at least it hit for me whenever I watched it, where whenever I was walking out of the theater, I just felt like, I felt like it was foggy outside. It was like a beautiful day, but I just wanted to like go to bed, honestly. I was like, man, I feel weird after that one. I don't know how to describe that feeling, but that's what I felt. Bradley Cooper also delivers a really great understated performance in this film. Honestly, whenever I was watching the nominees get announced, I thought after Nightmare Alley was getting all of these nominations that it wasn't predicted to get, that he may even slip in there. And ultimately he didn't, but I think that this is one of his better performances in years. Probably his best since A Star is Born, but it's not like big and flashy and in your face that he's really good. It's very, very under the surface, very understated, but he absolutely kills it. And then I also think Cate Blanchett delivers a very memorable performance, to where if I think that if this movie had performed better box office wise and enough people had gone out to see it, that Cate Blanchett would have had a better case to get nominated for Best Supporting Actress. I'm really fine with the people that got nominated for supporting actress in that respect, but what I mean by that is that Cate Blanchett is just such a big name that anytime she's in a movie, I feel like she is going to be considered for one of the top awards. But the thing is that just not a lot of people went out to see this, and while that doesn't directly affect the Academy Award nominations, it does kind of play a factor. I'd be lying if I said it didn't play a factor. It's not the biggest thing. There's a lot of things that go into effect there, but okay, I've talked for like a minute now about Cate Blanchett not getting nominated. I have to move on. It's also directed by Guillermo del Toro, whose last movie, The Shape of Water, won Best Picture. So this guy, he's another one of those directors that honestly doesn't know how to make a bad movie, and he knows how to make a very unique film. If anything, this felt like one of his more straightforward films that he'd done in the past. Compared to like Pan's Labyrinth as well as The Shape of Water, like and the two Hellboy movies that he made, anything else is straightforward. But I still think that he made a really great film that affected me emotionally after I walked out, and I'm happy to see it nominated here. So then a couple of things about Nightmare Alley here. Classic rise and fall, little predictable, but still good. Directed by Guillermo del Toro. And then I'll go ahead and put memorable performances from Bradley Cooper and Cate Blanchett. So that's Nightmare Alley. Okay, now it's time to talk about a movie that I am very excited to talk about, The Power of the Dog. And this movie is about a lot of things, but very briefly, it's the story of a man who is in conflict with his brother's new wife and ultimately sends her over the edge emotionally. That ends up setting off a number of ripple effects with other characters in the film. Yeah, I don't want to say too much about it because I really do not want to spoil this movie for you guys, but I love this. I know I've said it already about a couple of movies here that are nominated, but this probably has the biggest disparity between how I felt about it the first time I watched it versus how I feel about it now. With movies like Belfast and Koda, I loved them right out the gate, but The Power of the Dog was one of those movies similar to like Licorice Pizza or Drive My Car where I was like, yeah, that was definitely a good movie, but I don't see myself rewatching it. But the more that I let the ending sit with me, the more that it just kind of changes the movie for me to the point where whenever I was rewatching it for the supporting category videos that I did about a month ago, I loved it. You see now that you have all of the pieces to the puzzle, where certain characters are heading, why this person does this, how truly great some of the acting performances are here. There's so much that you miss just because you don't have all the information in the first viewing. It has some of the best cinematography of the year, I think only second to Dune, and it has outstanding performances, in my opinion. You have Benedict Cumberbatch, Kirsten Dunst, Cody Smith-McPhee, and Jesse Plemons all nominated for Oscars, and deservingly so. They are all fantastic in their very, very, very different roles. And this is one of those movies that are slow, but it has actual payoff at the end. This movie was one that I had to sit with for a while and watch again to really get to where I am now with it, to the point where like this should 100% have been in my top 10 movies of 2021 list. It should have at least been acknowledged in my honorable mentions. I mean, what was I doing back in January? Ultimately, I think what affected me most the first time I watched it is I had expectations for a Western movie that was going to have gunfights and a lot of conflict. And ultimately, this movie does have a lot of conflict, but I don't remember a single punch being thrown. I would have no problem with this movie winning. I think that it is an excellent, slow Western film that is going to be talked about for a very long time. At least that's just my view. I think it deserves that. Jane Campion, the director of this, is probably going to win Best Director. She 100,000,000% deserves it. I know that I just said earlier in the video, Denis Villeneuve is like he's the director of the year, but Jane Campion, close second in my opinion. But since Denis Villeneuve isn't even nominated, I don't need to go back to that. But Campion is probably going to win, and I don't have a problem with it at all. And then ultimately, this film is also up for 10 different awards. I'm not going to list them all out, but it's nominated in every single acting category, screenplay, directing. Ultimately, I think Campion is going to win for the screenplay as well. And then I believe it's nominated for cinematography, and rightfully so. So here, let me list off a couple of things about The Power of the Dog. Man, like, where do I go with this? I honestly want to make the first bullet point just an excellent film, but I want to be more specific there. Excellent cinematography, slow burn film with payoff. My capitalization is all over the place, but just bear with me here. Fantastic performances. And then, gosh, what else? There, it's on Netflix. I'm just going to put that right there. I would imagine most people watching this have a Netflix. HBO Max is kind of up in the air, but like everybody has Netflix now. Definitely, if you like Westerns and you like kind of slower movies every now and then, it's definitely worth 2.5 hours of your time, and I guarantee the end is going to have you reeling about what it is you just watched. All right, we're almost at the end here. The very last film that I have to talk about today is West Side Story. This is, of course, the classic story of Tony and Maria, whose love becomes the subject of a lot of controversy amid a gang conflict. This, of course, is a musical. I would imagine, even if you've never seen the original West Side Story or the play, you've at least heard of it before. And this is a remake, and I was very, very skeptical of this movie whenever it was announced. Really, the only thing that kept me, going along with it is the fact that Steven Spielberg was going to direct it. But I have to say, this movie wowed me whenever I watched it. It did something that every single remake should do. It actually added to the story. And honestly, leave it to Steven Spielberg to take a movie that won like 10 Academy Awards and actually, in my opinion, make it better. He successfully adds a lot to classic set pieces that we know from the original film and also gives his own perspective on the story. The cast here is absolutely phenomenal. Ariana DeBose is probably going to win Best Supporting Actress on March 27th. Rita Moreno delivers a very memorable supporting performance as well. And I just have to say, Rachel Zegler, who plays Maria here, I don't know where Steven Spielberg found her, but she is going to be a star. She was amazing in this movie. Honestly, excellent job from front to back. Really great musical. And this is another one of those movies that I could see myself rewatching several times right now. If you haven't seen it, it's on Disney+. Give it a watch today. So now here, let me go ahead and put a few notes down here. Then now we're actually live here. I just recorded the part where I realized that I had not been recording my screen the entire video. So that's nice. At the very last film, nonetheless. But I got there. So here we go. Very rewatchable musical. Excellent performances. All the way around. Everyone here is great, but Ariana DeBose is probably going to win an Oscar, and I think we can expect to see a lot more of Rachel Zegler in the future. Steven Spielberg, another one of those directors where you just attach his name to a film, and I mean, that's almost enough to tell you that it's going to be good. Spielberg's track list isn't perfect, but he's like batting 90% at this point. My favorite director of all time. And then added a lot to a classic. And that cannot be overemphasized how hard that is. I mean, West Side Story literally won Best Picture in 1961. Steven Spielberg saw that and was like, I feel like I can add to that. Like, dude, what? Like, you can only be the best director of all time, in my opinion, again, in order to think that big and actually accomplish what you set out to do. Kudos to Steven Spielberg and everyone associated to West Side Story. Again, it's on Disney+. I highly recommend you watch it today. All right, now to the hard part. Who is actually going to win Best Picture? And I wish I could say that I knew. So Best Picture, very briefly, it's different than how the other categories are voted for. In every other category, professionals who are members of the Academy within that profession actually vote on that. So like an actor can only vote for the acting categories. A director can only vote for the directing category. Editors editing, you get it. But whenever it comes to Best Picture, all 10,000 members vote on this. And it's not a matter of who receives the most votes. I wish it was that simple. What they do is they do preferential balloting. And so essentially what that means is if you're a member of the Academy, you rank all of the films nominated for Best Picture from 1 to 10. And then you need at least 50% of number one votes in order for your film to be crowned Best Picture. Now, naturally, what happens after the first round of voting if no film has 50%? What happens is whatever film is at the very bottom of someone's list, that gets completely wiped off the ballot. So what happens then, if you're an individual, like say I'm a member of the Academy and I vote Dune to be my number one movie, I think that it should win Best Picture, that gets the least amount of votes after the first round. Then my vote no longer goes to Dune. it goes to my number 2 film. So in that case, let's say Koda then gets my vote along with everyone else who's in my same boat, but with their respective films. And basically it goes on and on and on like that until a film has over 50%. So if that made sense to you guys, basically that system works to benefit the film that people like the most. So you don't necessarily have to be the very best film of the year. You have to be the most mass appealing film of the year that's also excellently made. So for that reason, it seems like it should be between Belfast, Koda, or West Side Story, or even King Richard, because those are the most mass appealing movies on this list. However, The Power of the Dog makes it very interesting because, like I said earlier, it's nominated for 10 awards. So it would stand to reason that if it's nominated across those, like that many different professions of the Academy, that those people would probably vote for it again. But the thing is, we don't know where that is. Like, it's so hard to explain. But if any of these niche films is probably going to win, it's going to be The Power of the Dog. I'm going to say right now, Don't Look Up isn't going to win. Drive My Car isn't going to win. Dune, unfortunately, is not going to win. I doubt Licorice Pizza is going to win. Nightmare Alley, no, it's not going to win. It's between those 5. Belfast, Koda, King Richard, West Side Story, and The Power of the Dog. I don't think King Richard is going to win. The Power of the Dog has been getting a lot of wins for picture and other voting bodies, but I don't think it can be. Do not underestimate Koda or Belfast or West Side Story. Any 3 of those films could win this. But ultimately, this is so hard. I think I'm going to go with the film that's been winning in most of the bodies and has 10 nominees, or 10 nominations, excuse me. And I'm going to go with The Power of the Dog. The reason why I'm hesitant there is because it's not like a super mass appealing movie the way that those other 3 films are, where the people that love The Power of the Dog love The Power of the Dog. But if The Power of the Dog didn't work for you, it's not going to be like your 4th or 5th best film. Like, at the very least, if you walked out of West Side Story and it wasn't like your favorite film of the year, you still walk out kind of on a high, or not on a high because it ends in tragedy, but you know what I mean. You can still walk out and say like, oh, well, like that was fun, right? You don't walk out of The Power of the Dog and say that was fun. You walk out of The Power of the Dog and you say, that's an incredibly made film. So that's really the only reason why I doubt The Power of the Dog. But it has been winning things and it has a ton of nominations. I'm going to go with The Power of the Dog. And also just a side note, it is extremely rare for a movie whose director is not nominated for Best Director to win Best Picture. The only case that I can think of off the top of my head is whenever Argo won Best Picture in 2012 or the 2013 ceremony, and Ben Affleck wasn't nominated for Best Director. One of the biggest snubs in that category of all time. So if that logic stands to reason, the real competitors here should be Belfast, Drive My Car, Licorice Pizza, The Power of the Dog, and West Side Story. However, man, it's just so hard because I do think Koda is gaining a lot of traction here. If Koda won on award night, I would be very happy, obviously. I love that film, but its director wasn't nominated, so it would be in a very, very small group of films where the movie has won Best Picture, but the director wasn't even nominated for director. But anyway, at this point, I'm just rambling. I think The Power of the Dog is going to be the movie that walks away with a big trophy at the end of the day, and Jane Campion is going to be the filmmaker that everyone is talking about the next day because she is probably going to win director, she's probably going to win screenplay, and I have her winning picture as well. So anyway, that is my video on Best Picture. I cannot believe that the Academy Awards are only a couple of days away. I know some people don't care about them, but I do. I love seeing these filmmakers acknowledged. And honestly, I'm just so excited. I think that there is a case to be made about most all of these films here to win, and this is a very strong category this year. But I want to hear from you. Have you seen these movies? What do you think should win? Are there any here that you don't enjoy? I know for me personally, some of them didn't hit for me, but that's just my opinion. I'm not saying that it's the right one. It's just mine. But thank you so much for watching at this point. And leave a comment down below if you feel compelled to. Tell me what you think should win Best Picture. And I will see you next time on the 100 Movie Marathon. Bye, guys.